Hello ChaoZ, this is Cyber, and I'm here to bring you hopefully a pretty brief introduction to Warframe. For the sake of this guide, I've just got my Excalibur equipped, as that's probably the frame you started with, and I want to just give you some of the tips that I wish people had told me when I first started. The biggest thing that people seem to get confused about is the difference between affinity and experience. This up here is your player level, your mastery rank, but each of your weapons and Warframes also has its own rank. Now, as you can see, I've got my Excalibur to rank 30. Rank 30 is the highest rank you're ever going to be able to obtain. For every rank you have in a weapon or a Warframe, you'll get 1 point that you can use to put into mods for a maximum 30, and you use that to put the mods that you get by completing missions and killing enemies onto your Warframe. And you may be familiar with things like skill trees in other RPGs, but that system is completely replaced with a modular, build your own stats and skills system. It's not the most open-ended thing in the world. You only have a few skills available, active skills you might say, for your Warframe at any time, but there's a whole bunch of passives that work well for you depending on the build you want. You'll notice I have 60 total cost to spend on mods here because I've used an Orokin reactor on my Warframe. There's an equivalent Orokin catalyst. They've been nicknamed blue and gold potatoes by the community. They're pretty hard to get, and they're consumable, but they can be used to make a Warframe or a weapon double its capacity. So every level it'll give you 2 points instead of 1, and it'll apply retroactively. So no matter when you install it, you'll always end up with 60 total. And on a Warframe and a melee weapon, you can equip an aura or a stance, respectively, which will, instead of taking away, will give you more polarity, which is always nice. So even if you don't have a good one, like Energy Siphon I have here, early on you may be able to get your hands on Enemy Radar or Speed Holster, which aren't incredibly useful, but will still give you more points towards your mods. As for other tips concerning mods, Vitality and Redirection are the two you want to be focusing on the most, because you're going to be using these consistently no matter which Warframe you're using. They increase your health and your shield capacity, whereas all these others are more situational. This increases the amount of time my skills last. This gives me energy when I get damaged. This lets me unlock locked chests. And this makes my skills have farther range, and I only have one skill because this is an endgame utility build, which is a crowd control, which will be affected by all my other things. Its efficiency makes it cost less. I'm not going to be giving deep class building suggestions here. There's plenty of guides online for that. Just know if you match up the symbols, upper right hand corner, it'll have the cost that will be deducted from your pool. If it's not on a slot at all, it'll be the same cost. If it's on a polarity slot that is different from the one it is, like this one right here, it will double, or not double, it'll increase the cost by 50%. Same goes for weapons. Notice I don't have an Orokin catalyst on here, so I only have the total of 30 points. Now, even though you're going to start out with weapons that are not that great, you're going to want to level them all the way to 30, because every time one of your weapons or one of your Warframes gains a level, it'll give you experience towards your overall mastery rank. And increasing that mastery rank gives you benefits like allowing you to use the trading post more times in a day, allow you to use more resource extractors a day, and will allow you to buy and craft more stuff. Now, speaking of that, I'm going to jump over the market here. Now, something that a lot of people are confused about is they think that everything in the game must be bought, because click on Warframes. Okay, I looked on Warframes, and I see all these Warframes here that cost premium currency. And I have 291 here because I bought some, but they give you 50 to start out, which is obviously not enough to buy any of these. Even Volt, I believe, is the cheapest at, one of the cheapest at least, at 75, or Loki at 75, is still more than the starting amount they give you. Now, if you really want to take a shortcut, you can buy one of the Warframes or weapons if you've bought Platinum and you really decide to do that. It's not an incredibly terrible idea, considering you get a free weapon or Warframe slot and a free reactor of the respective kind to go along with it, but you're probably just better off doing it for free. So instead of buying through what looks like the main part of the market, in Warframes, the big box there, in here, any of the big boxes here, you want to jump down to where it says blueprints, and you see these are each bought with credits, the non-premium currency that you're going to gain through normal play. Just look at Excalibur real quick. In case that wasn't the one you started out with, you could buy it here. It requires a bunch of credits and each of the parts and a rare resource to craft. And any of these others, same thing. You're going to require a helmet, chassis systems, and rare parts and credits. Most of the time, you get those by defeating the bosses of the star map. And then you would go and buy the blueprint and make it all together. Weapons are a bit easier, because they require mostly resources and no special parts. For example, the Vectis requires all resources and no special parts, so you can get that as long as you have the resources, which you get from doing missions. And the same with secondary and melee weapons. So you'll, melee weapons, there's some pretty high tier ones here. You'll Dragon Econa. So it's a bit hard since I am level 6 and have unlocked most of the stuff in the market, but if you're not high enough master rank, some items are going to be locked and you have to reach the right rank before you can buy them or craft them. While we're here, I'll give a few tips for beginner weapons. In terms of primary, you're going to start out with the Mark 1 Bratton, which is a pretty terrible gun. The Burstin is a decent alternative, fairly similar. I strongly recommend the Gricata. You can buy it you can craft it very early on. It doesn't require a ton of rare resources that won't take you forever to get. And if you slap an accuracy mod on it and make a status build out of it, it will serve you very well. I'm at late mid-game right now, and it's still one of my favorite weapons to use. As you get a little further, you can try different stuff out yourself. The Bolter is a pretty good gun. Once you get to it, Penta's pretty good. Soma is considered one of the best guns in the game. I'm not going to get it because it's so good that it would pretty much ruin every other automatic weapon for me. But in terms of secondaries, I actually don't have a ton of experience with different secondaries because I use them so little. I've only gone through a few of them. But the Angstrom's really good. You can get it. Bolto's really good, but it's hard to make. You've got to use up the Lado that you start with, and then add some fairly rare resources to it, and it's pretty much just the secondary version of the Boltor. Some pretty standard things to go through are the Hiko and the Kunai. I use the Hiko myself, and not the Kunai, but you're basically trading speed for damage half and half. You can get them pretty early on. The Hiko, at least, don't take a lot to craft. 5 Morphix is going to be the hardest thing to get. And I suggest maybe trying out the Sestro once you get to it. It's an okay gun, depending on what you're pairing it with. As for melee, there's a lot of really good options in melee. I would suggest trying a whole bunch of stuff out and finding a couple you like and focusing on leveling those, and maybe don't even worry about the others until you're focusing on your rank. The dual ethers are really good. they do a lot of extra damage against Fested. The Dual Skana is decent. Dual Zorns are very good, and you pretty commonly get the blueprints for them as login rewards, so you won't have to spend the extra 15,000 on those. I probably got 3 Dual Zoran blueprints in my bag. The Galatine's pretty good once you get to it. Kestrel's pretty good. Skana you start out with isn't that great. Orthos is pretty good. You can't really go wrong with many of the melee weapons anyway. If you can get it through login reward, you might want to try out the glaive. I don't have my original glaive anymore. I sold it because I ended up getting glaive prime, but it's a unique weapon that is thrown and returns you like a boomerang, and with the right mods you can make it explode on its final hit. So like I said, you're going to be getting most of your items through crafting, unless you go out and buy them all. So I'll just run through crafting real quick. This window shows you everything that you've received a blueprint for. You need a blueprint before you can make something. This tab will show you anything in progress. This will show you anything that you have all the resources to build, but not necessarily all the credits to build. So just see real quick if there is anything for the sake of... No, it doesn't look like it. And then these will divide out between the different kinds of things. One thing that might be a little confusing is helmet is part of a... It's one of the components to make a Warframe. But there's also appearance cosmetic helmets that you oftentimes get as rewards for alert missions, which are not the same thing. You're not going to be able to make the Saren helmet here and be able to use it to craft a Saren. You can just use it to change the appearance of your Saren once you get it. Keys are another important thing. I'll get to those when I start getting into missions. So this here's the star map, which is essentially the world map. Opens up at Mercury, and as you do more missions, you'll unlock more portions of the star map, and it will start branching out. So once you get to Earth, you want to look at... A good thing to do would be to look at the wiki at different Warframes, and focus on one that you like the look of and want to aim at getting, and then begin the process of making towards that particular planet. So you might end up going this route, or you might end up going this route, but it branches out enough that you want to be aiming towards a specific Warframe more than just thinking you're going to complete the whole map. These here are extractors, which you can get by going to the market. Keys and drones, and get different extractors here. I wouldn't worry about the distilling extractor, because it requires a lot of really rare resources and credits. Its biggest benefit is that it has a higher chance of getting you rare resources when you use it, and it will get you them in bigger amounts. Titan extractor is a lot easier to make, and I am high enough master rank that I can have 2 of them at once. It'll show me where I have them. Because I've unlocked all the nodes on Mercury, I was able to send it out, and after 4 hours it gathers resources. I can claim it, and in 4 more hours it'll be ready for me again. Same with Venus. Neither of these resources were particularly valuable, but a lot of times I'll get things that I do find very useful, and it's always nice to see those when it does happen. In any case, it's free resources. Up here are the alerts. If you have the mission locked that it's referring to, you get to go on a special version of the mission that will give you extra rewards. As you can see, I don't have this particular node unlocked because I haven't worked towards it on the map yet, but I do have this one. Whenever there's a new dev stream, they'll release a gift from the Lotus event, which usually lasts a really long time, and will give, I believe, a Forma, an Orokin Catalyst, or an Orokin Reactor. Those are good because they're very hard to make otherwise, and very rare to find the blueprints for. but they're essentially premium items and more or less saving platinum by doing it that way. I'd like to show you some basics of combat here. There's really two different main kinds of mission. There's normal missions where you're just setting out for a pretty basic objective. And then there's survival and defense, where you're trying to survive or defend an objective for as long as you can and getting incremental rewards that increase in worth the longer you last. I guess boss fights are kind of a third category, where you're just aiming for one enemy in specific after cutting through a map full of ads, and bosses will drop unique parts, usually Warframe, specific Warframe parts. Captain Vor doesn't, he's the first one you fight, and he'll drop the blueprints for the Cronus, which is a good replacement for the Skana that you'll have, and the blueprint for the Seer pistol, which I honestly don't recommend getting because it requires some resources that are going to be hard for you to find early on, and isn't an incredible advantage over the Lado. So I am going to jump into a solo match to show you some of the combat basics. Online mode lets you jump into an arena with anybody. Private only allows your friends to jump in with you. Invite only, you have to invite people before they're able to jump in. That's useful for if you want to invite a couple of friends into a boss match and then open it up so that you can fill up the rest of the party with randoms. And then solo is good for if you're trying to farm resources, because normally people just want to run through the map as fast as they can and not worry about farming. So I'll just jump into Terminus. Okay, so it's fairly basic controls. WASD movement, shift for run, got a crouch button. For me as alt, I don't remember what the default is, I think I changed it. If you run and crouch, you'll slide. It's good for moving around quickly. If you're sliding and you hit the spacebar, you'll do a leap forward. Otherwise, you'll just jump. You have a stamina bar at your upper right, which is directly below your shield and health. Your shield will regenerate over time, whereas your health will not. And lower right, you'll see the weapon you have equipped, the ammo you have for it, which of your skills are available for casting, and your energy, which I have an aura that gives me energy over time, but normally you won't have that. Anything that's glowing green will be opened and will give you resources and ammo, and red orbs, which are health, blue orbs, which are energy, and shimmering orbs, which give you affinity, which is experience. Maps in Warframe are randomly, procedurally generated according to a tile set of rooms, so you can play the same mission 10 times over and it'll look very similar each time, but the layout won't be exactly the same, which is nice. It gives it an extra element of replayability. Stealth pays off. Killing enemies without them noticing you prevents them from setting off consoles, which will send more enemies in. I'll hopefully get one of them to set up a console so I can show you. Here he is. Just kill these guys real quick.
Ready your weapon.
Now, they show you this in the tutorial, but use the right and left mouse buttons to solve the puzzle, or you can craft ciphers, which I personally do. It saves a lot of time, and it doesn't take much to craft them. You can get them if you search around the marketplace. These kinds of chests you don't hit X to open, just break them. They tend to have more resources in them and fewer health orbs and the like. F, I don't know if that's the default. I believe it's the default for switching between your primary and secondary weapon. And also holding down F will shift you to your melee mode. And if you have a stance equipped, you'll have combos associated with those. So, for example, usually give you pretty big damage bonus in addition to movement speed. I have my melee set so that I can hit my middle mouse button to switch between melee and not. If you're in melee mode, you can go, it starts out with the setting of hold down, but something that's probably you're going to want to do is toggling melee channel. So when you have your weapon out, you can hit E, it'll turn on melee channel, which means your melee weapon will draw from your energy pool, the lower right, and will deal more damage. And there's lots of mods you can get that affect your channeling damage and efficiency, if that's the route you want to take with your weapon. Hitting T opens up the chat window. That's something that I did not find out for a long time. And if you're in the air, you can go into a slide to jump. That's useful for going across distances. You can wall run by holding down your slide, your run, and your forward, or whatever directional key. If you're in midair and you hit your melee button, you'll do a downward stab. If you're sliding in melee, you'll do a slashing attack. You can be sliding midair and still do your slash attack. You can do your stab even if you're flipping. If you're in aim down sights mode and you double tap, no, and you run, how does it go? You can do a backwards jump, which normally hit your run button to do a forward jump, aim down sights, hold back, and hit run, and you can do your different directional jumps. There we go. Right, and as far as I know, that's pretty much it for combat tips. Using them generally makes you look a little less of a noob. You wouldn't believe how many people will have high-level Warframes and weapons that honestly probably just bought, and then will just walk around everywhere while everybody else ninja flips away from them. Now, there's special missions which are a little bit higher tier. You access with keys, which you get a lot of times as rewards for survival missions and the like. And you'll use these to enter the Orokin Void, which is a special tile set that contains things like laser and parkour traps and enemies of every faction at once. So normally you're able to spec yourself towards whatever faction you're fighting. Different damage types work very differently on different factions, but you're going to encounter all of them in the Void, and it's a lot harder to spec up against those. However, as rewards in the Void, you'll get prime parts. You can get to those. Oh, that's not where I want to go. See, all these prime parts here are for making prime weapons, and as you can imagine, they're very difficult to obtain because you only have a small chance of getting them from a particular Void map, and so you end up grinding many missions to get what you want. But they're generally worth it, usually having a lot higher stats than their normal counterparts, with the exception of prime Warframes, which for the most part only have more affinity slots built into them. You're going to most likely be getting most of the platinum you'll be getting in the game unless you buy it like I did, because I just love all the special cosmetic things, like the color packs and the Ciandanas here, and everything, but you'll be most likely selling your prime parts and your rare mods for platinum. And even if you're not part of a clan that has a trading post, a lot of people will still invite you to their trading post. So I'm gonna just try this out to show you. Say Warframe disk. Open up the trading tab. Want to sell Warframe disk to plat. I'm putting it low just because I want somebody to accept. Alright, here's somebody who wants to buy a part that I happen to have. So to message somebody, we /W for whisper, and put in their name, link underscore, also Dakra handle to plat. This opens up a separate tab, and you can use the site warframetrading.com. I don't remember the exact address of it. You can easily just do a search for it to find more or less typical prices for a lot of items, so you know a good idea of what to sell it at. While we wait for this guy to accept trade request, if he decides to, we'll go over the recruiting chat. This is a good place to look if you're wanting to find people to go with you on hard missions. A lot of people will host Orokin Void matches, and you can join up with them. Oh, looks like this guy is. Okay. Thanks. I'll invite. I happen to be part of a clan that has a trading post, but even if you're not, you can usually just ask them to invite. In this case, I'll do it, because I might as well. And we open up the chat with T, right click on them, invite. And when he enters in, I'll go trading post here. And open up trade. Our clan doesn't have any clan tax. Sometimes a clan will set one up. Print part. Dakra prime handle. And offer. Each of us have a different trade tax implemented by the game that doesn't go to either of our clans. And that's how you trade. You only have a certain number of trades per day. I have 5 left because I'm a rank 6. And now that's how you trade. I've already mentioned the void keys, but real quick. The other kind of key is the derelict key, which you need to craft yourself. Oops. You go to keys and drones. There's a couple different kinds of Orokin derelict maps. Most people do just defense and assassinate. Assassinate, you'll be fighting a boss that drops the Necros parts. And defense, you'll be staying in one place and defending your defense objective against the infested. And that's the most likely place that you're going to be getting formal blueprints, which you... I don't think I mentioned those actually. Use formal blueprints to add an affinity slot to one of your existing slots. So if you happen to have one, hit polarize, and you can change the symbol and apply. I'm not going to do that because that would reset my Warframe's level to 0. It would still have the maximum enhanced from the reactor, but I'd have to level it all the way up again. And you don't gain master rank for leveling up more than once, you only get it on your first level through. Sentinels are like pets. You're not going to get those for a while because they cost a lot of money and resources. But once you get them, they're helpful. Well, guys, I think that's all I wanted to mention. Those are the things that I wish people would have told me when I first joined. Really sorry for the awkwardness and hesitation. I am not used to doing video with audio commentary over it. So thanks for your patience, and happy hunting, Tenno.